So yeah, the Maldives. The Maldives is a really fantastic and unique destination set in the Indian Ocean. It's just a bit southwest of India and Sri Lanka. And it crosses over the equator, and it's made up of approximately 1,190 coral islands, spread over like 90,000 square kilometers. So the islands themselves are quite small, but the level, the surface level of where these islands are spread over is really large. So it's actually one of the world's most disparate countries. And you can really imagine, I guess the Maldives is like, it's like an underwater mountain range, and the peaks of those mountains make up the islands. And basically over thousands of years, coral is built up and degraded, and it's created these amazing sandbanks, which now very nice hotels sit on top, and you can have a very nice luxurious stay while you're there. But it is, yeah, geographically, it's a really unique place. And right now, that helps a lot with what's going on in the world. Being geographically dispersed and having individual islands only reachable by speedboat and seaplane means it is quite lucky in a way when you have things like COVID. It really sort of stops the spread, and the Maldives has extremely low numbers compared to most other places in the world, which has meant that most other destinations have had to close down, and that includes some of the other destinations that we sell. Maldives has remained open for business and remained with very low numbers of cases. It was put on the travel corridor. It was one of the first countries to be put on the UK travel corridor. So it was, in the run up to Christmas, it was very much in demand, and we had a lot of business for like November, December, and into sort of beginning of January, until the sort of the new restrictions were implemented by the UK government because of the situation in the UK, but not the situation in the Maldives, which remains open for business, and people are traveling there, going on holiday, not now unfortunately from the UK, but from other parts of the world. And so, yeah, that unique geography of the country really gives it sort of an advantage, I think. And I think once we see restrictions eased, hopefully before the spring, by the end of the winter, I think we'll see a large boom in people trying to go to the Maldives again as one of the first destinations they'll be looking at, because of its ease of getting there and its sort of relative safety. So yeah, in terms of selling tips, really, you get a 30-day visa issued on arrival. You would now be expected to fill out a health declaration form online. Very simple, just takes a couple of minutes. And you would do that before your departure flight. You also required a PCR test for entry. So that's and obviously it has to be negative. So you have to take a PCR test within 96 hours of boarding your flight of departure. And you need to get your negative test back then, and then you take the certificate that you don't have COVID, you've got your negative test, and you take that with you for your transfer. So you show that on arrival into the Maldives. So those are the two key points really, is the health declaration form and showing your negative PCR test. And that gives you entry for 30 days into the Maldives. It's an Islamic country, so you can't bring alcohol in. But of course, the resorts being on private islands, they have their own liquor licenses, so you can buy alcohol on the islands. But if you go to like a local island, then those islands will be dry. In terms of flights, all the major airlines, BA flies direct, and you have plenty of flights going via, like Dubai is probably the most popular route, and some clients like to do a stopover in Dubai as well. We do quite a lot of Sri Lanka business, so we do like cultural tours, itineraries around around Sri Lanka, including Colombo, and then we usually go on and do a sort of beach stay in the Maldives. So I think they combine really, really well. It's like an hour from Sri Lanka to the Maldives. So you can do a sort of cultural thing in Sri Lanka and go to the tea trails, go to some amazing ancient temples and ancient sites, and then do a lot of traveling exploration, and then there's an hour flight from Colombo to the Maldives, and then you can just relax on the beach afterwards. So that's quite an interesting one. And I think once Sri Lanka is open for business, hopefully later this year from the UK, then that could be something you might want to consider as well. But yeah, in the meantime, Dubai is a good one to go via. BA going direct, Sri Lanka and Colombo, Qatar. There's lots of readily available routes to the Maldives, so it's very accessible. And the properties themselves, they have a range of meal plans from like bed and breakfast up to all-inclusive. I would always recommend, if you're staying in the Maldives, to go for a meal plan that's more than just bed and breakfast, because you're going to be staying on probably just one island for, I don't know, 6 or 7 nights, and you're going to be eating and drinking exclusively on that island. So it makes sense to have at least prepaid breakfast and dinner. Otherwise, you're probably going to be spending a fair bit of money on the resort. And what we are finding now is the most popular properties, particularly for the UK market, are all-inclusive properties where everything's already prepaid for. You can just relax. You get to the resort, you're not having to stress about how much you're spending. It's all already paid for. So that's always a good option. And from personal experience, being on some business trips, fan trips, going to the Maldives, and even just, you know, we have a few meals included, but maybe the booze isn't included. And I've run up some pretty hefty bar bills in the Maldives, and had some slightly panic-inducing checkouts going, oh my God, that's quite a big bill to pay off. So yeah, worthwhile if you can get on all-inclusive, and then you can just kind of relax and enjoy yourself. But at least half board. If you're not a big drinker, then I think half board is probably perfectly acceptable. But yeah, Maldives is a year-round destination. It's open for business throughout the year. It's probably one of the most asked questions that we get is when is the best time to go, and when is the rainy season? So we're right now we're in sort of peak high season, from festive season all the way through to the end of April. This is kind of the peak period where it's supposed to be the best weather, driest, and the rates are higher. So it's a really good time to go, but you're going to be spending more money. Now, in terms of the weather, it's supposed to be the dry season. We've actually had several days in consecutive weeks of rain. Not like every day, but we've had a fair amount of rainfall over this time, which is not always the case, but I think it just shows that the Maldives, the weather is really sporadic and it can rain at any time. The traditional sort of rainier season was May to October. But I don't know, I think with changing climate and weather conditions, it's not so much the case now, and it can really can rain at any time, but tends not to rain for very long. So I guess what I'm trying to say is don't be afraid to look at the Maldives for that May to October season. The rates are like half the price, and you've got a very good chance of having equally good weather. The country's on the equator, so the temperatures will remain about 28, 29 Celsius throughout the year. May to October, yeah, you might have a slightly greater chance of rainfall, but that will be probably like a sharp, short showers for a couple of hours, and it'll clear up, and then you have sunny, nice weather for the rest of the day. Yeah, so usually you'd be very unlucky to spend a week and have consecutive days of heavy rain. So I would look at Maldives throughout the year, and for the best deals, look at May to October. You can get some really good rates, and it's not anywhere near as busy. The only caveat to that really is you have a period called the sort of change of season, which is towards the end of May, beginning of June. The season changes, and that's when you do get like a 1 or 2 week period of unsettled weather. And then again, from like end of September to beginning of October, it changes back. So if there's any period to avoid in the Maldives, you might want to avoid end of May, beginning of June, end of September, beginning of October. There is definitely a slightly higher chance of rainfall then. But overall, May to October is good, and right now we're in peak season. Anything else to mention?
Sorry, I'm going to just quickly jump in. We've got a big bar at the bottom of the screen. I'm just conscious that people can't see some of the stuff at the bottom.
Okay, so that's the Zoom bar. How do I get rid of that?
It's the 3 dots on the right-hand end.
Oh, I can just press that, can I?
Hit that and then hit hide. Hide floating menu.
Hide.
Well done, Doug. 'Cause I can't
Hide
see
video
what-
panel. Oh, no, hide floating media control. There we go.
Yeah, there's one in the middle of the screen.
There is-
Now.
Yeah, I see it. It's saying press escape. Oh, there we go.
Oh,
It's
that's
got-
it. Yay. Great.
Well done.
Thanks, Doug.
Thanks,
Right. Go.
Yeah, so yeah, anything else about arrivals? PCR tests, health form, and yeah, on departure as well. You're now required to take a PCR test before you depart to re-enter the UK. So those tests will be done on resort, and all the resorts have the facilities to do testing. The cost will be roughly about $150 per person at the resorts, and they're done. You just can, from the comfort of your room, they can be done, and they'll be done like the day before departure. So yeah, they've adapted pretty well to this COVID crisis, and there are hospitals set up now in the Maldives. They have all the sort of state-of-the-art equipment to deal with any cases. If the worst should happen and you were to contract COVID while in the Maldives, they do have the facilities to care for you, and they have some specially designated hospitals specifically for tourists, because Maldives is so heavily reliant on the tourism industry. So they do have the facilities there. In terms of flexibility as well, I'll move on from COVID in a second, but in terms of, I don't know, say a couple of days before your departure, you take your PCR test, and unfortunately it comes back positive, and you're not able to travel to the Maldives. The Maldives have been, the resorts themselves are being pretty flexible, and they're offering you sort of opportunity to postpone your stay, and you can travel another time, use the credit you've spent, and you can say you couldn't travel that time because you've unfortunately had COVID. You can travel maybe a few months down the line and use that credit towards a future booking. And basically, as a general rule, any COVID-related reason that you're not able to travel to the Maldives, the resorts will be flexible and helpful. So a positive test is one example. A national lockdown is another, or the flights being cancelled is another one. So flexibility is really the key here, and we're all working together to try and amend bookings, rebookings. We've done loads. I know that travel counsellors have had to amend a lot of bookings. So we've been very active in the last few months, amending bookings for later dates, or even refunding bookings if it's just not possible at all to travel. So cancellations, amendments, really key. They are flexible. So if you are making bookings and you're worried about that, I think you can have some confidence that there is flexibility there. Okay, so these pictures here, this is the airport really. At the top picture, this is Mali Airport. This is where you arrive into, and they've built a bridge from the bottom left, which is in the picture below, and this connects it to Mali city, which is the main sort of hub, the main city in the Maldives. This is where most of the local Maldivian population live, where the businesses are based, where the main shops, restaurants, schools, local life exists in a very densely populated, very small city, but with a large population. Most of the Maldives population live on Mali. So it's a pretty crazy place. It's very hectic, a lot of people on scooters and bikes rushing around. It's hot, it's full on. It's quite interesting if you want to see it, but you've probably done it in a sort of couple of hours and you want to get the hell out of there and get somewhere more relaxing. But it is quite interesting. And if you wanted to go to a local restaurant, there's some really good restaurants there, or even go check out like the local fish market. They've got some very beautiful like ancient mosques dating back to like the Friday Mosque. It dates back to the 16th century. There are some interesting things to see on Mali, and we've got our office there as well. So I know it pretty well. I've walked the streets of Mali many times. And and it's hot, it's crazy, but it's interesting and a fun way to kill a couple of hours if you're waiting for a flight. So you can now get a taxi across it on the bridge. We have a counter. It's counter number 50. It's just here, Hummingbird Travel. So that's when you come through the arrivals doors, you'll be met by one of our team, and we'll take you through to your transfer. But if you, for whatever reason, you can't find us, we have our counter. It's counter number 50. You'll find us just at the arrivals lounge. Just go back to this picture here. So this sort of grouping of buildings, this is the International Arrivals Terminal, and the lagoon just here, this is the jetty. This is where the speedboats go, and the speedboats go and service the islands within sort of the Mali Atoll, the North and South Mali Atoll. So they're islands that are closer and reachable by speedboat. And then this lagoon here, this is where the seaplanes take off from. So they fly out to islands that are a bit further away, too far for a speedboat to travel to. Actually, I might just go back to the map to give you an example. So this is the North Mali Atoll, and this is the South Mali Atoll. So this, if you're staying in any resorts in these two atolls, you'll be taking a speedboat transfer, and it takes about probably maximum like half an hour. The advantage to staying in this atoll is it's close to the airport and it's easy, convenient to get to, and it's just a short transfer. It is more busy though. This is where most of the resorts are based. This is where you'll see the odd international flight passing overhead. You'll see seaplanes, you'll see boats. It's a sort of more heavily populated area of the Maldives, and you've got more properties. So I'll give you some examples of some famous ones you may have heard of. In the sort of the luxury end, you've got somewhere like One and Only Riti Ra, which is, well, really the first luxury 5-star plus property in the Maldives, and it's still one of the top properties there. That's a very famous one in the Mali Atoll. And then some more affordable options that are doing very, very well. The Atmosphere properties, there's the Ozen by Atmosphere, which is like a luxury all-inclusive, very popular in the UK market. And then you've got a couple more Atmosphere properties called the Helengeli and the Sangeli. And they are sort of more 4-star, all-inclusive, more affordable, but really, really good and easy reach by speedboat. So you've got quite a few properties in that area. And yeah, again, the advantage is the ease of reaching there, but the disadvantage is it's a busier atoll, there's more going on. So if you want to go further afield, you've got to take a seaplane. So if you take a seaplane like up to the north, the northern atolls, like this is the Bar Atoll here, and this is the Ra Atoll above it. They're a lot more remote. A little bit further to get to. Seaplane will take about 40-45 minutes, but you really are in the middle of nowhere, and there's some very, very beautiful properties up here. And then down here you've got this is called the South Ari Atoll, which is also a seaplane transfer and quite famous for whale sharks, which you can see year round. So if you come here, it's a really good place to go diving or snorkeling, and you've got a good chance of seeing whale sharks. There's some nice properties down here, like the Lux South Ari Atoll is a really nice 5-star all-inclusive, but a reasonably priced one. You've got the Conrad, which is like a mid-range 5-star, with some pretty awesome rooms, including an underwater room. Lily Beach is another one that's a good all-inclusive. And they're all great places, launch pads, to see lots of great marine life, but also the whale sharks, which are pretty amazing. And then, yeah, the Bar Atoll up in the north here, that's a BAA, is quite famous for an area called the Hanafaru Bay, which is where large numbers of manta rays congregate, particularly from May to October, which is the feeding season for manta rays. They come and they feed on plankton. And it's like a small marine protected biosphere, and there's a large number of plankton builds up, and the mantas come in, and sometimes you could see around 40 to 50 manta rays in a bit of a feeding frenzy, which is a really cool experience. You can get a permit to go snorkeling there. It's a 2-hour permit. So if you're staying anywhere in the Bar Atoll, an example of a resort in the Bar Atoll would be somewhere like Suniva Fushi, Four Seasons Land at Garavaru, Finolu, all big sellers for us, Dusit Thani. if you're staying at any of those properties, it's a great place to launch and then go to the Hanafaru Bay for an excursion and see loads and loads of mantas. So really cool experience. So yeah, those are probably your main atolls. So just to recap, North and South Mali Atoll, the South Ari Atoll here, and the Bar Atoll just here. Those are the most popular. They have the sort of the most properties. And then if you go further north or further down south, you get even more remote. And rather than even taking a seaplane, you might have to take a domestic flight, which is a larger aircraft and then a speedboat. So you go to take a larger aircraft to a local airport, and then you take a speedboat. But yeah, the seaplane transfers are popular because, well, they fly at a really nice altitude and they give you pretty spectacular views out the window. So they are 12-seater Canadian Twin Otter seaplanes. And they are, yeah, just amazing photo opportunities. And it takes about 40-45 minutes usually. And yeah, a lot of people want to experience it at least once to fly on a seaplane. It's a pretty special experience. And you kind of fly in to the lagoon of the island, and you land pretty much at the jetty of the island and hop out, and you've arrived. So they're very safe form of transport, but they only fly during daylight hours. So worth keeping in mind that the last seaplanes will be leaving at sort of about 3 to 4 p.m. So if you're booking an international flight and you're going to an island in the Maldives that's only reachable by seaplane, you need to really get into the Maldives latest by 3 p.m. Anything later than that, you run the risk of missing the last seaplane, and you won't be able to transfer to your island until the next day. If that is the case, don't worry. There are backup options. We can book you a night in an island close by, which is reachable by speedboat, and then the next day you transfer in the morning to your preferred destination. Or you can stay at a sort of transit hotel on Mali or on the airport if you're getting in really, really late, and you can transfer the next day. But it's worth bearing in mind, yeah. So just think about that. Make sure you get in no later than 3 p.m. for a seaplane transfer. We don't have the same issues. Domestic flights, speedboats, they don't have the same problems. They fly, they operate day or night. So speedboats, you can arrive in any time. Domestic flights, they operate until about midnight. So it's just the seaplanes that would be affected by getting in late, because they can't fly at night. So yeah, who would stay in the Maldives? Why is the Maldives so popular? And for me, it's the ultimate beach stay destination. Just before we started this this presentation, we were talking about another destination that we sell called Mauritius. Mauritius is a really nice island, also with nice beaches. But I think the key difference with the Maldives is the exclusivity and the quality of the beach is like very few other places on earth. Mauritius, Seychelles, Sri Lanka as well, they have nice beaches, but they're public beaches and they're shared. So you don't have it exclusively just to yourself. You're sharing with other resorts, with locals, with anyone really. Whereas the Maldives is just for guests and staff on a private island. So you really do have a stretch of beach that nobody else can set foot on, and you have that level of privacy and exclusivity that's pretty unparalleled. And also the formation of the beach as well. The beaches are all formed of white coral sand, so the fine white sand is really, really nice and quite unique as well to the Maldives. This picture on the right is actually it's a place I've been. It's a sandbank opposite an island called Suniva Fushi, and it's a really good example. It just sits out in the lagoon completely on its own. And you can get a boat across from Suniva Fushi, and in the late afternoon, early evening for sunset, they set it up a bit like this with lots of candles, and they have people serving canapes and glasses of wine, and you watch the sunset from a sandbank in the middle of the ocean, and there's nothing around you for miles and miles, and you're completely cut off from the world, and you're just on this tiny strip of sand, and it's a really cool experience. And the colors, when the sun is setting, you got like pinks and purples against the coral white sand. It's a bit otherworldly, I think, is one way I describe it, I suppose. It's just ethereal, the light, and yeah, very romantic. I was with my wife, and we really found it really lovely. But also, really cool thing to do if you've got kids or a family, and a special experience, with loved ones. Really, it's a very good personal time. It's good quality time together with not so many distractions, just like really stunning scenery and simplicity and seclusion. So I think that's something that the Maldives really has to offer. And yeah, the islands themselves, we're having to go to a sandbank just on the islands you're staying at. You can have dinners on the beach. You can do kind of sandbank dining. You can do romantic dinners or family dinners. It's got a lot to offer, whether you're a honeymooner or a family. And the position of the villas themselves is quite unique as well. So the villas are right directly on the beach, or if they're water villas, they're directly in the lagoon on stilts with steps going down into the lagoon. So in having that direct access to the water, it's pretty tough to beat the Maldives. Like Mauritius, again, really nice, but you're staying in larger blocks of rooms, and they're usually set back a bit from the beach. You have like a garden area in front, and then you get onto the beach. Whereas the Maldives, if you're staying in a beach villa, you're directly, a couple of meters from the beach. So yeah, that sort of direct access is also pretty unparalleled. And yeah, Maldives has always been a great honeymooner destination because of the privacy, because of the exclusivity, because of the sunrises and the sunsets, and amazing stargazing as well. There's very little light pollution, so at night the stars really pop. They look amazing. And you've got some great little boutique properties, that some of which are adult only as well. There aren't many adult-only resorts in the Maldives, but there are a few, and some really good ones like Kamandu is a really good, like 4-star plus adult-only property. Very small, great house reef, very popular with divers and snorkelers. It's just got one restaurant, one bar, very simple, tiny island, but it's really, really romantic and very well done. That's always been a popular one. You've also got Barros, which is for adults only as well. Huvemfushi actually is no longer exclusively adults only, but it's still very much like an adult focused resort. And the Hurawali, which is like a five-star luxury all-inclusive, very, very nice. It's kind of a minimalist aesthetic design. All kind of a Japanese architect, and it's all natural woods, and light and space is a big part of their plan. But it's a particular favorite Hummingbird, the Hurawali, if you can pronounce it. But it's a really nice property as well. But they're all quite similar in a way, these sort of honeymooner specialists, in that they are very much adult focused. You're not going to have children on the islands, and they are fairly small, quite boutique, and yeah, range of budgets. Like Kamandu is affordable, Barros is like a leading 5-star, so still quite affordable, a bit more expensive. And then something like Huvemfushi and Hurawali, they're proper 5 stars, so they are going to be on the upper end of the budget. But yeah, all good options if you're looking for an island that's more for the honeymooners. Conversely, if you're a family, you might be looking for a larger island that's got more to do and more sort of facilities and kids clubs and teens clubs and things. And we have those islands too. And I would usually recommend an island that's a bit larger. And they have more of those kind of facilities. And the Maldives is such a great destination for families. Again, for that quality time, you don't have to worry about being somewhere at a certain time, or seeing this site, or getting a transfer here at this certain time. You're not really on a sort of strict itinerary. You can really relax and like just have quality time with the families, do really fun excursions together, have dinner together in your villa or on the beach, or whatever you want to do. Go dolphin watching, or go fishing, or go to have a picnic on a uninhabited island somewhere. These kind of things. I think more and more people are realizing how good the Maldives is for multi-generational stays, and we're seeing now, lots of bookings for 2 or 3, 4-bedroom rooms where the grandparents, the parents, the grandchildren, they're all staying together and just having a really nice time. So some resorts are really good for that, with interconnecting rooms. and I've given a few examples. There's a property, 4-star property called the Sunshiam Olivelli, which is, it's not too far from Mali, and it's a speedboat transfer, and that's got a really good kids club where they're going to be entertained throughout the week. There's lots of activities, organized treasure hunts, sort of pirate activities. They've got a pirate ship, and they've got like a specialist kids pool, and they do a bit of education as well, like learning about the environment, caring for the marine life, all that kind of stuff. The parents will know that the children are going to be entertained throughout the week, and they can kind of do their own thing as well if they want to, or get involved. But Olivelli is a good one. The Lux South Ariatel. Lux has got not just a good kids club, but also a teens club, and often the teenagers sometimes get a bit neglected. There's sort of that awkward phase of being a bit too old to hang out with the younger kids, but not old enough to hang out with the older parents who are drinking alcohol and stuff like that. So Lux does really good more for the older kids activities as well, maybe a few more water sports and more grown-up activities. So they have a really good teens club. Like introductory courses on how to dive as well, which is really fun. Some like windsurfing lessons, all that kind of thing. That's keeps everyone occupied. And then, you've got places like Kandima, also quite modern, quite a large resort. It's got like 10 restaurants. That's a lead-in 5-star. That I would also recommend for families. You've got interconnecting rooms, and it's actually quite affordable as well. Niyama we're going up to like a mid-range 5-star now, and that's got, it's actually got a surf school. So it's May to October is a great time to go surfing in the Maldives, and you could learn to surf if you're worried about being bored on a small island for too long. It'd be a great place to learn how to surf and be occupied throughout the week. And at the top end, you've got places like One and Only Risura and Suniva Fushi, which is very expensive resorts, but obviously very, very nice. So I think one of the best things about the Maldives, apart from the beaches, of course, and the privacy, is also what's in the water, what's surrounding the islands themselves, which are coral lagoons. So this is a picture on the right of Dusit Thani, and you can see it's surrounded by quite a sort of shallow lagoon, which is kind of like the turquoise blue waters, and that usually comes up to about your waist. It's not very deep, so it's nice to kind of bathe in, to paddle around. Very safe, protected by a coral wall. And then as we get out past the water villas, we get to an area known as the drop-off, and the drop-off is like a sort of cliff edge that goes straight down. And that's where you have the colder water clashing with the warmer lagoon water, and you get a large proportion of the coral marine life. And it's a great place to go snorkeling. And you can, like somewhere like Dusit Thani, which has a great house reef, you can take your snorkeling equipment and go around the island 360 degrees. And that's pretty much my favorite way to spend a day in the Maldives. Is I like to go snorkeling, and not that I'm very good at it, but I do my best. But it's fun. It's just I love sort of following all the different fish, the different marine life, the stingrays, the eagle rays, the odd reef tip shark, who are perfectly harmless, by the way. You don't have to worry about any scary beasts in the Maldives. It's a really safe destination. They do have sharks, but they're not interested in humans. They are always busy sort of snooping around, looking into other things, but no, completely harmless. There's never been a reported shark attack ever in the Maldives, so it's a really safe destination. And it's really cool to see. I've seen a couple of reef tip sharks, and it's quite exciting. You see turtles, octopus, amazing, like large shoals of fish, and it's so colorful. It's just spend hours doing it really, and then just go around the island. And it's a nice way to spend a day. Now that's what we would call, this is what we would call a house reef, and this comes up quite sometimes. So some resorts have a house reef, which is basically a reef you can swim to from the beach. Some resorts don't have a reef that's accessible directly from the beach. You'd need to take a speedboat. So those resorts, we say they have a lagoon, but they don't have a house reef, and it's about 50-50. But I would advise, if you're thinking about the kind of resort you want to stay at and what you want to do when you're there. If you're a mad snorkeling enthusiast, and the idea of just being able to grab the snorkeling gear and snorkel throughout most of the day without having to rely on a speedboat, you really want to be looking at a resort that has a house reef accessible from the beach, and it has a good house reef as well, with loads of marine life and good coral. And that's one of the first ways, easy ways you can narrow down your search, and when you're kind of looking for the right property for you. There's over 150 properties in the Maldives. There's quite a lot, and on the surface of it, they all look pretty much the same. They all got nice looking beaches, water villas, beach villas, nice turquoise lagoons. They all look really nice, but there are differences. And I think house reef is one of them. Some have the reef accessible from the beach. Some you need a speedboat. Other guests who maybe aren't so interested in the snorkeling side of things, but would like to do more kind of jet skis or water sports or parasailing or just swimming, and don't want to worry about, treading on coral when they're like trying to have a decent swim, maybe it's better to look at a resort that doesn't have a house reef and just has a big lagoon. So that's one way to narrow down that search. Another way, yes, is to think about, do you want a small island that's kind of more adult orientated, that's quieter, or do you want a larger island that's got more facilities for you, more dining options, maybe if you've got kids, or you want to do more sort of on-land sports, you want a tennis court, that kind of thing. Then you want to look at larger islands. So small or large, house reef, no house reef. These are kind of the early stages we can start to whittle down 150 resorts to, free, which is where we want to get to in the end. Always think like having free resorts to choose between is about right. Any more than free is you just start tearing your hair out and it gets too confusing. So yeah, whittling it down, it's a good way, good start. And in terms of the marine life, the ecology, you've got a variety of ecosystems, a lot of different coral species, lots of fish, turtle, I mentioned the whale sharks, dolphins, of course. The waters in the Maldives are really abundantly alive with marine life, and the water is also very clear. So, the visibility is amazing. Whether you're snorkeling or diving, you're going to see a lot. No matter where you're staying, you're always going to see marine life. That's not so much the case for the coral. I mean, every resort will have coral relatively close by, but the condition of the coral varies. There has sadly been coral bleaching because of rising sea temperatures as a result of the changing climate. And the Maldives, you can see that. There is coral bleaching, which basically means some of the corals have lost their color. They've gone like a sort of just a chalky white color. But the advantage the Maldives has is that every resort has a marine biology department on resort, who maintain the coral reefs directly from the islands. So that involves growing new coral on the island and replanting it. So this gives the Maldives a massive advantage because you've got 150 properties maintaining their reefs on a daily basis and replanting coral. And it's actually something guests can get involved in as well, in the replanting process. And it's really interesting, and also you're contributing back to the environment. So it's a nice thing to do, and it means that the Maldives hasn't been as badly as affected as some other places in other parts of the world have by coral bleaching. But it is a sad fact. It's a sad reality that we're living in. It's an ongoing battle, is maintaining that coral. As a general rule, the south of the Maldives has the most colorful coral and the least bleached. So if you head to the southern atolls, that has the best quality coral. So some examples of resorts in the south. My personal favorite resort in the Maldives is called the Six Senses Lamu, which is a eco-friendly mid-range 5-star. It's very dedicated to its sort of eco-friendly conscious tagline. They actually recycle like all the glass and plastic on resort. They actually have a recycling plant on resort, which is pretty amazing. But it's beyond just its eco credentials. It's just a really well run property. It's really, really beautiful. It's got an amazing overwater restaurant section with various different restaurants and bars all on this overwater platform. And so when you have dinner in the evening and you sit out under the stars on a pontoon out in the lagoon. It's pretty incredible. The food's amazing. Service is extraordinary. They've got tree houses, a dining option in a tree house. They grow their own vegetables and salads on resort. And it's fun as well. It's got a real sense of fun. But they also have really good coral, being situated in the south. So that's definitely a recommendation. But obviously, that's if you're on a bit of more of a budget. It's a mid-range 5-star, so it's not cheap. But there are some more affordable options down in the south as well. Like there's a small property called Sunshiam Villa Reef, which is one I would recommend either for honeymooners or for adults with younger children, and that's got a great house reef, and that's in the south as well, all inclusive, and really affordable. So yeah, that's just a general rule, but yeah, wherever you are in the Maldives, you will find coral and you will find marine life, and doesn't matter where you're staying, you'll always get that. And then yeah, we would recommend try out the diving. Every resort will have a dive center, PADI certified, and it's a great place to learn to dive, or if you're an experienced diver, to do some diving courses, or you know, to renew your licenses and do some more advanced dives, like diving with whale sharks in the South Ari, or if you're lucky in the Bar Atoll, you might get whale sharks there as well. Shipwreck dives, drift dives, all that kind of stuff. And the kids can also get involved by doing bubble makers courses. You can also do other water sports like windsurfing. As a general rule, motorized water sports are complimentary, and then you have to pay for the motorized stuff. So non-motorized is complimentary, but motorized you have to pay for. And then from May to October, surfing is really good at certain properties. You can't do it at all properties, but at certain properties like Anantara Digu, Four Seasons Kurahura, Six Senses Lamo I mentioned, the Niama, they have surf schools. Shangri-La Vilingili has actually closed for now, so it's off the list. Yeah, and a great place to learn to surf or do surf. But apart from sports and activities, you can, in the water, you can also do activities on land. There are daily activities organized at every resort that you can sign up to and get involved in. And they'll be payable directly on the island. Some all-inclusive plans include maybe like one sunset cruise and maybe one dolphin excursion, but the majority of excursions are payable directly on the resort. And I definitely recommend taking part in at least a couple. While you're in the Maldives, it's quite fun. So my favorite thing to do in the Maldives is island hopping. Apart from obviously the snorkeling, is island hopping and going to there's 1,190 coral islands in the Maldives, most of which are uninhabited. So there's a lot of islands you can explore that don't have locals or resorts on them. They're just completely empty. And why not, take a boat over with a picnic and spend the day on an uninhabited island and have a kind of a Robinson Crusoe experience, and bring a case of beers and just maybe mess around with some sea bobs or jet skis and have a really fun time. Also a good place, a colleague of mine proposed to his girlfriend, now wife, on one of these kind of picnic islands. And they had it all set up. So, if anyone's yet to get married, planning proposals and things, then that could be a nice thing to do as well. Or, I don't know, anniversaries, that kind of thing. Spas as well. Every resort will have a spa center for spa treatments. Fishing, if you're a fishing enthusiast, then big game fishing in the Maldives is pretty amazing. Or if you just like eating and drinking really, really well, the Maldives is amazing for food and drink. It's by far and away the best. Again, of the 4 destinations we saw, Sri Lanka does have amazing food. It's a little bit different, but I think in terms of overall quality, food and beverage, the Maldives is the best, even better than Seychelles or Mauritius. The food, the service, everything is top notch. And the variety of cuisine that's served in the Maldives, obviously fresh fish is the best thing to eat. It's right there. And it's if you love fish, the Maldives is really a paradise for you, especially fish curries, or even if it's like sushi or sashimi. They do it really, really well. But also, you know, they do everything really, from Japanese to American to pan-European, a mixture of everything. And they import obviously all the finest wines and meats. It's very luxurious and a great place if you are very much interested in fine dining. Then the Maldives is a great destination for that. There's some amazing restaurants. You can't do a legal marriage in the Maldives. You can do a renewal of vows, but you can't do like a legally binding marriage unless you're going to do a traditional Islamic wedding. So if you want to do, if you're already married, you want to do a renewal of vows and do like a service on a sandbank, plant a palm tree, that kind of thing, then that is possible, and that can be pre-booked with the resorts. But yeah, so some quirky, cool things that you can do in the Maldives. I just picked out a few. Vela Private Island, probably the most expensive resort in the Maldives. They have a submarine, which is quite fun if you don't want to get wet, but you want to go underwater, you can hop in their submarine. They also have a golf academy on the center of the island. It's a little 9-hole golf course, which is pretty cool. You can also dine underwater. So I mentioned earlier, Hurawali is a really good adults-only honeymooner destination, and they've actually got an underwater restaurant, which is, if you stay for more than 4 nights on the all-inclusive plan, it's included, and it's pretty spectacular. If dining underwater isn't enough, you could even sleep underwater. Need a bit of spare cash, but Conrad has a room called the Maraca, and there's a bedroom upstairs out on the jetty, and then you go down a spiral staircase, and there's another bedroom downstairs, and you can sleep with the fishes. Or if you just want to sleep under the stars, somewhere Fanolu, which is currently, I think, our top-selling property. It's a really nice sort of leading 5-star. It's got a kilometer-long sandbank, and a property I would recommend for, I think, people traveling to the Maldives looking for a bit more to do, and maybe looking for an island that has a more lively atmosphere. Fanolu is a really good option. Because it's got this kilometer-long sandbank. On like a Friday night, they have like parties on the sandbank, and everyone dresses up in white linen, and there's barbecues, there's drinks, there's DJs. It's quite cool. It's quite a cool scene. So there's a bit more going on, but it's a big enough island where there's still plenty of peace and quiet as well. And at the end of this sandbank, they've got a restaurant called the Crab Shack, which is baked crab, rosé wine, great for an afternoon. And then beyond that, they've got this bubble lodge, which you can do as sort of value adds towards the end of your stay, maybe for the last 1 or 2 nights, and sleep under the stars. Quite nice, quite romantic. Saniva Fushi, I mentioned about stargazing in the Maldives is amazing. And Saniva Fushi has actually got an observatory. It's connected to one of their treehouse restaurants by a rope bridge. So you go across the treetops and you can gaze up at the stars through a high-powered telescope, and they have a trained astronomer there to point out the different constellations, and it's a pretty special experience to do, particularly in the Maldives. And Antara Key Harbour also has a similar observatory now as well, so really, really nice. Also, water slides have become quite fashionable in the Maldives. Again, Saniva Fushi, they have a restaurant called Out of the Blue, which is a restaurant, a bar, and they have a water slide, so anyone can go up and use that throughout the day. I had a lot of fun on that, and now there are also rooms that have water slides now. Quite expensive again, but they're becoming quite fashionable. And there's a new property that's opened up called the Ozen Bolafushi, which is like a 5-star all-inclusive, close to Mali, more affordable than Saniva. And they do have water villas that have slides as well. So yeah, a lot of fun. Otherwise, Sunset Dolphin Cruise is hard to beat. You go out as the sun is setting, there's champagne on flowing and canapes, and hopefully you'll be surrounded by pods of dolphins and have a really nice time. You can also explore the Maldives by boat. We use a boat called the Scuba Spa, which is really, really nice. You can take a cabin there, and you can get as many scuba dives or spa treatments as you like, depends what your preference is, or a mixture of the two, and do like a 4 or 7 night tour around the Maldives and see lots and lots of amazing things. So it's a nice way to see a bit more of the country. from a very nice boat. And if you're extremely well endowed, you might want to hire out an entire island all to yourself. So you can hire out the Four Seasons rather, and that's just for you and your family. That's, I think it's about $45,000 a night. So you know, might have to save up for that one, but yeah, it's possible to take out an entire island. So yeah, to summarize, really, I kind of put at the end a list of properties, all the properties really, and kind of broke them down into different categories. What's best for families and what star rating they are. And you know, the 4 stars, 4-star pluses, even the entry level 5 stars, you're probably talking between $2,000 to $6,000 for a 7-night stay on all inclusive. There are a few properties that you can probably stay for during low season for $1,500, $600 for a 7-night stay on all inclusive, but majority is around $2,000, I would say. And then, you know, the 5 stars, the 5-star plus uber luxury ones can run up to crazy silly money. But there is a different resort to fit everybody's budget in the Maldives. And actually it's a really accessible destination. There are so many different properties to choose between. Depending on your budget, depending on what you're looking for, you can really narrow that down that search. And I'm sure, you know, the most important thing I think when you're deciding which resort you want to see is what you want to do in the Maldives, and let your TC agent know what you want out of your holiday in the Maldives so they can narrow down the search. And so the more we know what you want, the more likely is we're going to find the perfect resort for you. So, you know, if you know, a good choice of dining options is important. If a good all-inclusive is really important to you, if it's a really good house reef is important, if you want to do certain excursions, all that information is really, really useful. So, you know, put it all out there. Let us know what you want, and we can narrow down that 150 properties to 3 properties that are really going to suit you, both your budget and also what you want out of your holiday in the Maldives. So yeah, just the last few slides really, some selections here. These are the more sort of boutique, smaller properties that are great for honeymooners. If anyone's interested, I can share with you these slides, and you can sort of keep them, print them out, refer to them, look them up online, and it should give you a sort of a starting point on what resorts you might want to consider. And some house reef islands, really good house reefs. The Dusit Thani was the one I was talking about earlier, with the coral cave and 360 degrees house reef that goes all the way around the island. But on a sort of lower budget, somewhere like Riti Faru is a really nice 4-star plus. It's really affordable. Atmosphere, Helengeli, also really good value, and they've got amazing house reefs. So if snorkeling on a budget is really your main concern, I'd highly recommend those. And I've selected a few properties that are really good for food, because they have a great choice of restaurants or particular famous restaurants. So I've sort of picked a few of my faves to share with you there. And yeah, I think another defining factor is what style of resort do you like? Do you like a more, you know, I mentioned Six Senses, which is more eco-friendly, a bit rustic. It's like natural woods and thatched roofs and that kind of style, which is not for everyone. If that's your bag, then, you know, go for maybe a rustic style, or you someone who likes like clean lines, modern design, light, bright interiors, then you probably want some more modern style of resorts. That's another way we can kind of narrow down that search for you. You modern or you barefoot? What kind of style do you like? So like somewhere like a One and Only or Cheval Blanc is very modern, very futuristic looking, whereas, you know, Six Senses is more sort of traditional, rustic, barefoot style. And yeah, this last shot here is of Gili, which I would define as being very rustic. It's a luxury 5-star, but it's the style is, you know, barefoot, thatched roofs, traditional Maldives, which is very nice. So I will leave that there on that. So yeah, has anyone got any questions?
I think everyone's just stunned now. That was brilliant, Thomas. So
Great.
if you want to come off mute, anyone, and ask any questions, there's none have come up in the chat. I think everybody's just been a bit, I want to be there. Is there anyone that's got any questions about anything? You've covered so much there, Thomas. I think that was brilliant. It really went into lots of detail, lots of things to consider.
Yeah, good.
we all good. We'll be very quiet.
Can I ask a question?
Of course you can.
Thank you. How long would you recommend staying? Like, is 7 nights long enough, or would you recommend doing like a couple of different islands and maybe 5 nights in each island, something quieter, something busier?
Yeah, for sure. I would say 7 nights is probably long enough for one island. But if you're interested in doing a split stay, a twin center stay, then yeah, 5 and 5 would be perfect, or 4, even 4 and 4 would probably do it. The thing to remember if you're doing a split stay, I was mentioning this earlier actually, is we go back to the map, is try and keep it simple in the resorts that you're combining. So I would recommend, let me just do this. I would recommend staying somewhere in the same atoll if you're going from one resort to the other, because the logistics, because the Maldives is such a large country, getting from one resort to the other is not always that straightforward. So if I go back to this map, where is it? Full screen. Yeah, if we go back to the map here, just remove this as well. Yeah, so the north-south Mali Atoll. Yeah. If you're staying in either of these atolls, it's easy to get a speedboat from one island to the other. It's when you have to get a seaplane and then another seaplane, that can take a little bit more time, and you could be spending like half a day waiting for the seaplanes to connect with each other. So whenever we do a twin center stay, we always advise clients, go from one island to the other that's in the same atoll. And an atoll basically is, like a collection of the islands together. So this is an atoll, this is an atoll, this is an atoll, and they're close. So it's easy to get from one island to the other by speedboat. You don't have to go back to Mali. So all the seaplanes are routed through Mali Airport. So every seaplane is scheduled via Mali. So it'll go out to the island and it'll go back to Mali. So if you're, say if you're staying in the Bar Atoll here, and then you're going over to stay at another resort here, you'd have to fly back to Mali and then fly up to the Maladu Atoll. So, which will take a little bit more time. So better really to stay at one island here and then stay on another island here, or just do one seaplane and fly back to Mali and then take a speedboat, which is simpler. So
it adds quite a bit more onto the cost, doesn't it, to go backwards and forwards with the seaplane entity as well, because I've looked into that for a previous inquiry. So yeah, if you're looking at keeping the cost down, definitely.
Yeah, sounds lovely.
Thanks, Sonia. No, that's great. Yeah, there's a couple of sort of key points in there that I've come across that when I've been working on inquiries for other clients, and that was about the house reef. So I did pop that in the chat. That's a really good point. I'm glad you popped that on there, Thomas, because I think that's key if someone's really looking for that. Yeah. That ease of snorkeling and that straight from the beach, for example, isn't it? So that's a really good point to raise. But there's so much on there. The event is recorded. Get my teeth in. So if I can share the recording with everybody. Thomas, that was fantastic. I think just nobody else has added any more questions, so I think we'll end it there. If anyone, quick question: what's the routine lead time between booking and traveling? Quite a way in advance. Obviously, flight schedules come out generally about 11 months in advance. From the accommodation point of view, we've actually got contracts quite much further than that, Thomas, haven't we?
Yeah, it's funny. The Maldives is one of those destinations where we're getting bookings already for 2022, and we're also getting bookings for the day after tomorrow. So it's a mixture of the two, to be honest. But yeah, you can book in advance or you can book last minute.
Yeah, So we can plan quite a way ahead. We're just limited with the flight side of it, with the costings and the flight schedules for about 11 months at the moment, but we can pick that up and we can have a chat more about that afterwards. So that's great. But thank you everyone for joining this evening. Thomas, that was amazing. Thank you very much. And we'll end it there for this evening. So hopefully you've brought a bit of sunshine to your evening, everybody. Thank you.